Hello, and welcome to another lawnfawn video. Today we're taking a look at the Embroidery Hoop Window and Frame add-on die set. This die set is designed to coordinate with the original embroidery hoop, giving you different options on how to frame up your stitched artwork. This will also coordinate with the add-ons as well because the openings are sized to fit perfectly. So let's take a look at the dies in this set. First, there is the window, which will cut out a window with a stitching detail, allowing you to layer your stitched piece behind a panel and integrate it into a card front. Next, there is the little scallop frame. This is sized to fit around your embroidered piece and frame it up with a different option than the hoop that is included in the original die. This also fits around that window if you wanted to layer the two pieces together. Then there are these fun little additions. This is kind of a stitched detail panel. It will cut the stitching detail into your cardstock, but it will not cut out a shape. So you can put it anywhere on a card front and integrate that into your design, which is really fun to do. There's also this outside-in stitch star, which will cut out this cute little star, and also a star-shaped window with a stitching detail around it. These are really fun to layer together to create really simple cards. So I'm going to create some cards with this new die set, and first I'm starting out using the rainbow add-on. I've cut this from some pattern paper, as you can see here, and that's because I'm going to cut my front panel from that same pattern paper. I'm using the Stitch Clouds backdrop panel to create some fun texture onto my pattern paper, and then I will cut out the window from the middle. Now, to make sure this is right in the middle, I'm going to show you a little trick. I'm going to take my little window die and line this up centered on my grid mat, and then I'm going to mark the top and the bottom with a Sharpie. This is just going to allow me to see where the center of my circle is, and you'll see this will help me line it up. You can always eyeball it as well, but I thought I would show you this little trick that I like to use. So now that I have this sort of axis drawn on the circle, I can also find the center of my panel, and then I'll draw a really light pencil line marking the center of my panel. So I'm just using my T-square to draw that vertical line. You could also just use a ruler and connect the two dots, and it's very light as you can see there. But now what I can do is take that circle with those two little tick marks that I created and line those little tick marks up with my pencil line. I can shift it up and down on this panel, but I know that it is nice and centered between the left and the right. Then I'll just hold this in place with a little bit of low-tack tape and run this through my die cut machine, and I will have this really fun stitched window in my panel. Now this is going to layer right behind, and since I cut them out of the same paper, it will integrate it in and it will all look seamless. Now I want to erase my little pencil line, I don't want to forget that. And then I've pulled out some colors of floss to stitch my rainbow. For my rainbow, I will just be doing a simple back stitch using the full thickness of the floss, all 6 strands. But I am going to skip ahead and not show my stitching in this video. If you want to see more about stitching, please check out the Intro to the Embroidery Hoop video where I share some different stitches and different stitching techniques. And then through the magic of television, just like a cooking show, I have a finished embroidered rainbow. Now we need to incorporate this into our card. I did decide that before I assemble, I wanted to cut down this rectangle a little bit with the largest outside-in stitch rectangle so that I had a little bit of a border when I put this onto my card base. So I went ahead and cut that out. And now I have flipped this over and I'm adding a little line of liquid glue right around the window. Then what I want to do is line up this rainbow on the back side of this panel, just adhering it with that little line of glue. So I'm looking at it from the front so I make sure it's nice and straight. And I like that the liquid glue allows me to adjust it a little bit and get it perfect in that circle. Now I'm adding some foam adhesive all over the back so I can put this onto a card base popped up. I am avoiding the rainbow because of the thickness of the floss, so I'm just putting some foam right around that rainbow. And now I've pulled off that liner paper and we're going to pop this onto a card base. Since I used that large outside-in stitch rectangle, I am going to get that nice little white border around all the edges, and I'm really glad I did that because I think that it really helps with this card design. Now to really integrate this beautifully stitched rainbow into our design even more, I'm adding some of these stitch clouds from the Spring Showers die set. I glued that small cloud directly to the card base. Now I'm popping up this larger cloud with some thin foam squares so it has a little bit of dimension. But what I love about this design is that that rainbow looks like it's part of the background and it just goes right into those clouds below. Now this third cloud I'm adding with some regular thickness foam squares so we have some dimension between all of our clouds. For the sentiment, I'm using the Wavy Saying stamp set and I have that stitched wavy border cut from some Ballet Slippers cardstock, and I'm just stamping the sentiment Happy Birthday. This cute little card could be used for any occasions, but I always need birthday cards. And I've popped this up on the ends with some foam squares, but in the center it's going to touch that cloud, so I just added a little bit of liquid glue along the bottom of that cloud to catch the center of my sentiment banner. And then, of course, nothing's complete without a little bit of love, right? How about some small hearts? So I'm using the hearts from the Hearts and Stars Skinny Tag die set, cut these from some Guava Cardstock, and I've sprinkled them around. And once I have my placement, I just pick them up and add them with a little dot of glue. And I think that this looks fantastic. Of course, we need glitter, so I added glitter to those hearts, and I love adding glitter just to the tops of those puffy clouds. The last thing I decided to do with these glitter stickles is add some little dots around, and luckily my pattern paper has these little dots and I can kind of use those as a guide. So I'm just picking some random little circles and filling them in with glitter. And then here is my finished card with that rainbow kind of integrated into that blue panel, and I just think it has a really cool look. Next, let's make a card using the frame in the embroidery hoop window and frame add-on. This frame I cut from some narwhal cardstock, and I will just glue this, framing up my cute little stitched piece. This is just a different option if you don't want to use the embroidery hoop with the little screw that's at the top. So we're just putting a little line of glue right around the edge, right on the outside of that score line, and then this new frame will line up perfectly. I like to make sure that my frame is nice and straight by either having one of the scallop bumps sticking at the top and the bottom or one of the little valleys between them. So I'm just lining this up with my grid mat to make sure that's nice and straight. Now for my card base, I have a piece of this fun polka dot paper from the Rainbow Ever After collection that I've cut to 4¼ by 5½, and that will be the background for my card. So I'll just add this to a card base. I also used one of the stitch scallop rectangle frames for the outside. I cut this from Ballet Slipper cardstock so that it matches the background of my stitched piece. And I love how this rectangular frame will match the frame around my stitched piece with that beautiful scallop detail. Now I've put some foam squares on the back of this and I've just popped that into the center there. And then I have some cute little bees from the Hive 5 stamp set that I colored and cut out with the coordinating dies. And I'm just using these as my embellishments on this card. I thought it would be fun to add some cute little stamped bees around this stitched bee. The sentiment also comes from the Hive 5 stamp set. I wanted this to say, thanks for being sweet as honey, but this stamp on the bottom actually says you're sweet as honey. So I'm just trimming off the word your. I can always add that back in later, but that's going to keep me from trying to have to mask off the word your and not get any ink on it. I've lined those up and picked it up with the Door of the Misty, and I'm just stamping this in some black ink directly onto that pattern paper below. And of course, we need some glitter on this card, and the perfect place to add glitter for little bees is right on their wings. And then here is this completed card with that new fun scalloped frame around your beautiful stitched piece. Now let's take a look at those two other little pieces in this die set. We can do some fun things with those as well. So I thought I would make a simple monogram card, which you could make multiples of and make it a really nice gift for someone. I have some pattern paper here that I've cut to 4¼ by 5½, and we're going to trim down that yellow piece with a stitched rectangle die. Now when these two pieces are layered together, we have that nice blue border around our yellow piece, but I want to cut that window in this yellow rectangle. So I'm just using my window die from this die set, lining it up. I'll hold it in place with a little bit of low tack tape, and now I'll have this stitched window, which now we can see that blue paper through the window as well. Now I'm taking this detail die, and this actually has a proper up and down, so you want to make sure you have it straight up and down. So my little trick for the circle that I did earlier, I actually did on the back of this die too, so that I know where the top and the bottom is, and I can just make sure my arrows point in the right direction. Then I'm putting this inside that circle so I know it's going to be in the right spot to see it through that little window. And I'll just hold this in place with some tape and run that through my die cut machine, and now I have this cool design on that pattern paper. Now this design cuts those little stitching and dotted details, but it also has those little holes. So just remember, whatever you layer behind this, you're going to see through those holes. If you put this on a white card base, you'll see white. You could layer a color behind it. And for this card, I think I'm going to layer some pink behind it. So I'm just putting some glue on the back around that circle, and I'll just add this pink circle. I cut this with the die that cuts the window, so I know it fits around that perfectly, but you could also just use a scrap piece of paper. Now I'm adding my adhesive all over the back, and I can layer this onto my card base. Now I can do the same with that panel that I cut the window out of, and I'm using liquid glue so that I can kind of shift it around and make sure everything is nice and straight. Now for this, I'm making a monogram note card, so I have my little M for moss cut out using Louie's ABCs, but this would also be cute if you used that little star in the center as well. So you could put the star if you didn't want to put a letter. I am going to use one of these big stars and decorate around my monogram with some pink stars. So I also have some little stars cut with the Hearts and Stars skinny tag die, cut from that same pink pattern paper. And once I have the placement looking the way I want, I can just tack all these down with a little dot of liquid glue. Of course, we don't want to forget that big pink star as well. I thought it would be fun to layer another star on top of this big pink star, so I used that yellow pattern paper and cut out some more of the little stars and added a yellow star to the center, which I just thought was a really fun little detail. And of course, let's finish this off with a little bit of sparkle with our stickles. So I'm adding glitter to all those little stars, and I decided to go ahead and cover the whole M with some glitter as well. You could always cut this out of some fun glitter cardstock too. But I just think that it makes that monogram really stand out. So here is the finished card using that fun star and that fun stitching detail that are also part of this really fun new die set. So here's a look at the cards that I created, but I thought I would share some other ones that I made as well. Here is the card with the bee and the scallop frame, and here is another card that uses the scallop frame with the star embroidery hoop add-on. Here's another option for the window. It does not always have to match the background. You could make it a focal point by using a different color. And here's another example with that window really integrated. I ink blended the background to match my paper on top perfectly. And then when we look at that really fun stitching detail die, you could also integrate it into a scene, which is what I did here, that became my big sun in the sky with those cute little critters in the desert. Now let's take a look at some examples from the design team. I love Megan's card and how she incorporated her rainbow with the really high five stamps all around. I love this card by Audrey and how she used this shell design and put it into an underwater scene. So cool. This card by Elise uses the fun stitching detail to create a really simple thank you card, and I love the sequins she added to the design. And then this card by Tammy shows us that that cute little frame works for sentiments just as well as the embroidered designs. Here's a look at the second rainbow card that I shared, and I like that you can make the window a nice little focal point and it doesn't have to be in the center. This card by Grace is so sweet. I love how she used that stitch star to create a cute little baby card. And then this card by Elena is sweet as well, and she used that new stitching detail, but with the original embroidery hoop, which is really fun too. The little mice on Mindy's card are really excited to win this blue ribbon with that detail in the middle cut from some gold metallic cardstock. And then here is another look at the card I created with the star and the scallop frame on a really fun backdrop. And here's a look at the cards that I created in today's video. We have the rainbow that's integrated in the window into the background. We have the cute little bee with that really fun scalloped frame. And then we have the card that uses the stitching detail and the star to create a really simple monogram note card. I hope you've enjoyed this closer look at the new embroidery hoop window and frame add-on. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.